is it 7:04? 7:04.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark, Renee, Mike. I do the meetings as I do the, not minutes, but I write things down so I don't forget. And okay. The first thing we can do is go over the minutes that we had from last time. Are there three of us? Yes, that were
Yep.
at the meeting, so we can approve them if people have had it. I sent them out. So people should have had a chance to take a look at them.
So moved.
Okay,
So you have to second,
I second
Renee.
it. I second it.
Yeah.
Hi.
Oh,
Hi, Barbara.
Barbara's here. Okay, and Barbara.
Thanks.
Okay, we just approved the minutes, Barbara. So what I was going to try to do this today was go through if you notice, I left the discussion with Mike and towards the end. So what I wanted to do was go through the first items fairly quickly, so we could spend some time talking about what the EDC is doing, what direction we should be taking, and just have time to do that. So quickly, I'll just go over my notes from the Four Corners meeting. I did attend I always attend the monthly Four Corners Business Association meeting. And the issue that I was working on with them was the farmers market. People were aware that Meredith Brower had tried to start a farmers market last year at the Four Corners and was not able to do so because there was a zoning, there was a special permit granted only for Saturdays and she wanted it for Tuesday. And so we didn't know what the history was behind that. So I did a little bit of digging. And basically the reason it was for Saturday was because way back in 2011, Roz Weir and Jim Weir had petitioned for a special permit to have a farmer's market on Saturday and only Saturday, because there was a group called the Seconic Growers Association that was going to hopefully do a farmer's market there. They went before the zoning board, got the special permit, and so they were limited to Saturday because that's what they had in fact requested. Fast forward. So when Meredith went to the went to the town council to get the permit or to do the farmer's market, she wasn't allowed because of that. I did speak to Mike Marcello to find out what the status of that was. He said that in his opinion, he thought that the initial petition had already, what did he call it? It had already
Lapsed.
Lapsed. Thank you very much. It had already lapsed. So in fact, there is no special permit right now, a standing one at Four Corners. And should anybody want to do a farmer's market, they would have to go through the whole process again and request it for any day they wanted. So if they wanted to have a farmer's market on Tuesday, they'd have to go to the zoning board, petition, have it heard, and then grant it or not. When I spoke to Meredith and explained that to her, she said, I don't know, it was very confusing because we had sort of gone through this when she first started. I said, this is what he told me this last time. So that's what it would be. As it turns out, she's very happy where she is at Sandy Woods. There's more parking there. There's bigger facilities there. She and I were talking just this Tuesday, and she's very, she's looking forward to the year. She says a lot of people it's gotten very, there are people already signing up. She's got a big one coming up on April 3rd, a pop-up one, and there are lots of people already applying for the summer season. So she, we've gone through the tough time with her, and she's feeling confident that it'll be good. But anyway, that was the issue from the farmers market. The other thing that they discussed was that they're a very active group. I am quite impressed by them. The Four Corners Association, they do a great job getting together and advertising. And honestly, if we could take that model and move it to different parts of town, with different vendors, it would be great. And I've thought about it, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, they have a very unique district, but I almost wonder if it could be, instead of districts, if it could be by vendors. So, like car associations or repair people or something like that. We could do associations like that, but that's just something for down the pike or to think about, because they really are a very active group, and they're very supportive of each other. And I think they add, the way they conduct their businesses adds a lot to the town. Anyway, so that was that. They're doing a lot of, they're thinking of having some pop-up things. Oh, that was the other reason that the petition was important, because they were concerned that if they went ahead and did some pop-up activities, that it might impact because of the special permit. But again, Mike Marcello said, if it's just normal business, it's not a problem. So if they want to have, like daffodil days is something they're talking about, he said that would not be an issue. It's if they want to have something like a farmer's market that they'd have to go before the town council. I'm sorry, before the zoning board. So that was that. Barbara, you had mentioned you were going to item number 4, see if you could come up with some, since you're in that area, any new businesses, names of new businesses.
I dropped off some of those things that you gave me, some of those cards. And unfortunately, I've had a very, very busy couple of weeks. My husband had cataract surgery, and it was just a couple of, and with all the waitings and everything at doctors and that, I really haven't had that much time to follow it up. Okay. But I had a couple of interesting things that came up at the historic preservation meeting this morning that actually concerns the Four Corners.
Okay.
If you want to know about them now or do it under new business, it's up to you.
It's fine, Barbara. Why don't you just go ahead?
Well, one of the things came up, as you know, the ceramic studio, like across from the entrance to Gray's, they're putting a big addition on it. They've gone up a floor and extended it southward, I would say.
Where, Barbara, where are you talking on?
On the floor.
I know.
It's actually, if you exit the Gray's door, you'd face it.
It's the building by the meeting house.
It's like in front of the meeting house, sort of.
Okay.
And evidently, that was, the permits were issued without running it by the Historic District Commission, planning and zoning type of situation. So they're planning to put a cease and desist order on it right now, which I don't know that that's a wise thing, since I guess it's through no fault of their own that they didn't run it in front of the other commissions, because they really didn't know that they had to. There's sort of an ambiguous kind of feeling, I think. But that doesn't, to me, speak happy to have more business and you're trying to do something nice attitude that I think the EDC would like to convey to, provided everyone stays in their rights and doesn't inflict any harm or whatever you want to say. I don't
Barbara,
really
do we know who's actually doing the building? It's
the people that bought it from Rosalind. And allegedly, and I forgot the name. Actually, nobody mentioned the name, but they live on Neck Road. They're like the 3rd or 4th house down on Neck Road, on the north side of Neck Road.
Yeah.
So is there anything we could do if we wanted to try and help move through this situation?
I'm actually not sure, because at this point, if there's going to be some kind of cease and desist,
Yeah.
if something's not been, but it just brings up issues that happen all the time in terms of who knows what from whom.
Exactly, and we talked about that, and I mentioned the EDC as well as historic preservation. There's a lack of communication between the actual zoning and planning board. And we've said that before, that we wish that planning board, when somebody new comes into town and is interested in something, starting something in the town, that is a courtesy, maybe they inform us.
But it's something that has come up before, not only with planning, but also the town hall, because there is no trigger so that if a new business is coming in, unless we happen to be driving down the road and see it, we have no idea that they're coming in. We find out when the sign goes up.
But the permitting, the people that hand out the building permits, and that they know, and
Right.
if there would be some sort of communication within the permitting board, planning board, us, even if it concerns a historic property, the Historic Preservation Advisory Board, if you had some sort of cycle of dispersing information, it might, even if it just prevents some sort of embarrassing moments for something, for somebody that asks us something and we're not aware of it, even we think we should be aware of it.
Right. That's, Mike, this is something that has come up a number of times. It's one of those things where, we always, way back when we all got started again, one of the things we did, this was way back when Jan Reitzma was in, was we asked the town to go through what they called the lean process. And that was something that Elizabeth Tanner, who is now the head of the Department of Business Regulation, we had talked about it. She wasn't business regulation at that point. She was doing something else. And we really kind of pushed for that, so that in town hall, they could go through the process where if businesses were coming in, that process was neat and clean, and there was something there so that the people that needed to be notified would be notified. They did it in part of it. I don't know that the building and zoning, this is going back a couple of years already that they did it, but I don't know that zoning and planning were part of it. In fact, I assume they probably were not. But that's just something that comes up time and time again and has added to the complaints that people hear that Tiverton is just not business friendly. Because it's not a smooth process. And, part of it's turnover, part of it's, new people, part of it, but I mean, there's not even a single, I don't know how to smooth that out even more. I know in other.
There's no SOP in place.
What's that, huh?
The standard operating procedure.
Well, I think what in other towns, when I've spoken to people in Bristol and Portsmouth and Middletown and Warren, the planning board and the EDC work together, because, where the planning board has the permitting and all of that, at least the EDC should be aware of it. Just communication wise.
Well, I think just perception wise, if we're a valid committee that's appointed by the town council, we should have, even if it's just feel good, we should sort of have some sort of credibility in the fact that they inform us. And otherwise we're like an exercise in futility. And that's not true, because we put our valuable time and we're trying to help, take advantage of our willingness to help and actually let us. That's the way I feel about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to second what Mark said, that there should be documented standard operating procedures and checklists, and us being engaged should be part of it. And how we can be engaged, I think sounds like a discussion we're going to have with Mike Burke later on. But I do agree with you, Mark, if it's always like one-off and people finding out after the fact, that costs money, and it does make us look unfriendly from a
Yeah,
business
and
perspective.
it solves a lot of issues, especially with turnover. If there's a procedure in place and you have a new hire or a change of whatever, that procedure is in the books and it's just automatic. So
Yeah, I agree.
I understand it's a challenge to get everyone together, but unless you set up a procedure for it, it's never going to happen.
Right. And it literally could be as simple as a checklist, something that, if you're, especially with areas that are like Four Corners, which is, a bell should go off with that one because that is a historic area. And that should be something that, like I said, it should be a checklist, could be something simple as that. So we'll bring that up again, Barbara. Thank you for.
Actually, we're about to publish from the Historic Preservation a little brochure that will help people that have historic properties access. It's a guide to access different agencies that might be of help and so forth and so on. And it's a simple thing that Sue Anderson put together, but she did an excellent job.
Right.
So that, we should be aware of it and be able to maybe give that as a guide to some people who would be interested in rehabilitating for business and a historic
Right.
location.
Oh, it's like the pamphlet we put together for starting businesses in town. It's the same kind of thing, the information is there, but it's not always there when you need it or usable or people are not aware of it.
Right. Well, real estate agents showing people historic houses or that type of situation can hand it out, and that's one of the plans, I think.
Good. Okay, so you have handed out some. I have to apologize to people. I did not hand out the cards to everybody. Mike, we had come up with 2 basic stationery kinds of things. And again, this is why we're trying to get names of businesses, because one of the things we've been trying to do is, and it's hard because nobody's going out. So we've had these cards for a while, but basically what they are, we have 2 cards. One is basically just a card that it's a blank card with the EDC logo. We can send it out for anything, welcome, thank you, whatever it is, that just so we can start getting things out. And that's why we were looking for the new businesses, so we could send them out the cards, welcome to town, this is who we are. But also with that card, also we have postcards that are self-addressed, that have that we could drop off instead of calling cards. We decided instead of calling cards, we could use these cards. So if we were at a business or if we were walking around, we could just drop some off and say, hey, listen, this is from the Economic Development Commission. We're trying to put together an email list, just it's stamped, just send it back to us with the information and then we can add you to our list. So I apologize, guys, for not getting those out to you. I will do that ASAP, but those are cards that we have so that we can use to just communicate by mail and
Great.
uses emails and to get more people involved. In terms of the business park, I have also, I know I was going to go up, but it occurred to me that one of the things that is going on, and this sort of coordinates with some of the other stuff we're talking about, is that there are at least 2 businesses I know of who are interested or in the process of going into the business park. I'm not sure what their status is at this point. One was the storage company and one was the wood sales company. What I did do was send an email to Tara asking her if there was a map of the industrial park that at least located where those businesses were going to be. So we had an idea of where these 2 businesses were going to fit in. The business park is an issue. Something we can bring up later, but in terms of visiting, I was hoping that Tara would send us a map. And unless, Mike, do you have a map? Would you happen to have something?
I was just going to look to see, I have to make sure the material I have isn't from an executive session.
Right.
Which all of it might not be pertinent to the there might be pieces that I can ask and excerpt from it. I just don't know. So while we're talking, I'll look and see.
It's just a question of, I can get a map, I can pull a map up of the industrial park, but it doesn't have, I'm sorry, I keep saying industrial park, business park, but it doesn't have like where those other things are. And it just would be helpful. I'm very concrete. It helps me to know where things are going to go.
No, yeah.
So I'll see if Tara gets something. Maybe if you can, look around and see if you can find something, that would be great. Because I still think we need to take a look at the business park, and just we can't do it as a group unless we call another meeting. So that's why I said, do it on your own, guys. But as soon as I have the maps, maybe we could follow up with that again. The business park, the reason that prompted this, Mike, was that because I happened to hear a workshop or something, Stephen Pryor, who's the head of RI Commerce, talking about how in the state, Tiverton is one of 7 towns that still has industrial land. And I thought that was something that sort of stuck in my head, and we thought about it and said, well, we need to get ahead of the curve on this one. Because if it's, and if it's something that could work for us, I mean, I know one of the things that always stops businesses from going into the business park is the infrastructure, so that maybe this is something that between the town council and the EDC and planning board, we could sort of put our minds together and see if there's some way we could use it to get some money from RI Commerce, because they just spent an awful lot of money in Portsmouth putting in a research center. That was in a couple of months ago. I sent that out, and we're just not ahead of the game, and I think that that's something we should be looking at. So anyway, that's where we can talk about that again, but that's where all this business park is coming from, that information. Number 6 was the website.
So just one thing, Renee, if I could, in terms of your mention about the infrastructure, one of the things that generally is done in negotiations, without giving anything away, is looking at the cost per acreage based on whether or not the town will help with the infrastructure or the business will pay for it. So that is considered in those negotiation processes.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe there's some way we can get matching money, or I don't know. It's a very big question. It's an area that we could look at. It may take a whole meeting, just that, but it's something that's in the. Go ahead.
Well, now that the state is getting that COVID money that the whatever they just passed, I wonder if, because money is more free flowing, they have some unexpected income of money. Could we tag into that they could invest in Tiverton and somehow or other in something that would be advantageous economically, like signage for the industrial park?
So I want to be careful of not steering away from what's on the agenda from an Open Meetings Act perspective.
Yeah.
What I can say is we do have that up on our agenda for next Monday. It will be, but it's a very early discussion because we're still waiting on guidance. And I'll give an example of my agency that I work for, which is the State Child Welfare Agency. In the December package, not the most recent package that was passed, there's some significant money in there for older youth in foster care. Last week, we got the guidance from the federal agency that tells us how to use the money, which is retroactive back for a year at least. And we have only until the fall to obligate the money. So it's most of the federal agencies, especially with the changeover of administrations, are behind significantly in providing the guidance that is required to be able to know what you can and cannot use the money for, because although there's a significant amount, there are a lot of requirements that whoever, whether it's for cities and towns, whether it's for schools or the state, there are a lot of requirements that have to be met.
Okay.
Just going back to the business park, just kind of carrying on your thought about negotiation between the business of the town with the infrastructure. the challenge that comes up is if you got an individual business that is willing to go into the business park, they're not going to be willing to put that upfront infrastructure cost in that will then benefit other potential members who don't have to put up that money for infrastructure. So, I mean, that's just something to be thoughtful about, that it's obviously not going to happen all at once. It's going to be on a case-by-case basis with anyone going in there. And that needs to be considered during that negotiation, to either do a split of those infrastructure costs or help defray that initial cost and have it picked up by other potential folks who might be going into that space. Because that initial infrastructure cost is going to be catastrophic for any new business, regardless of what kind of negotiation you do up front with the cost of the property.
Especially a deeper, if you want to put one way deep into the site, that means you're going to put all kinds of road work in for, as Mark suggested, for someone else's benefit. So it makes it difficult to probably sell those deep
Just
lots.
running electricity could run $20,000 or $30,000 just to run a line in. And
Now-
that's not very far. So
Now, who paid for did the Tiverton Power pay for that initial road, that section that's drivable? Who paid for that?
I honestly don't know, Barbara.
I wouldn't know.
Mm-mm.
Predates me by too many years.
yeah, I just brought it up because it needs to be considered in that whole process.
Hmm.
Right. Okay. So that's something we could talk about, maybe add to another agenda, the business park. And especially if you're going to be working on it with the town council.
Hmm.
Okay. The EDC website, Dave Robert has been really good at updating that for us. He's the webmaster for the town. So he cleaned it up, but unfortunately, we had talked way back when about doing also on the EDC website, something about a business of the month, or business news. It wasn't business of the month, but business news. And that still didn't get done. And so I will talk to him again. It's just really hard because he's very busy doing other things. And he's not just our webmaster. So that becomes problematic. He's been very helpful. Every time I talk to him, he doesn't, he's wonderful. But I still think that we need to have a section that would just, business news that could be updated more frequently. So I will talk to him again and see if we figure out how we can work on that. That's all I can say about that. It's also like, I know when you look at the town website, there's a section for current events. And, this came up again at the Four Corners meeting. That would be something that it would be really nice if the Four Corners people could tap into that and advertise on the town website, like their daffodil days or their because as things start opening up, there will be more and more of those kinds of functions. And I think that's something that could be, the town website could be a little bit more dynamic, and our website could be a little bit more dynamic if we had the ability to update things more frequently.
So I like the idea of having a little calendar or a little section on news. There may not be a lot of news from month to month, but when there is, it'd be good to have it. I think if you combine that with a business profile, like we had also discussed, there's a lot of small businesses that have been impacted by the pandemic, and they're trying to reemerge and reengage and prepare themselves for when more people are vaccinated and we do start to get back to whatever the new normal is. And I think we probably would find there's more of an appetite to participate now than maybe there was a year or two ago.
Mhm.
So I like the idea of maybe a page, but maybe it would have a combination of things and not just news.
Right.
You
Yeah,
guys-
absolutely. It could be, well, this all started because S&S Transmission, and I'm forgetting her name. I have her picture, I can picture her in my mind, had won that award way back in September. And we wanted to put it on our website with, just to sort of, yeah, it's good news. It's nice to have good news in Tiverton. And we never were able to get it on. So that's just, I will talk to him again and see what we can work on now that it's been cleaned up a little bit, and see if we could sort of touch base
Could-
on that again.
Could we have some sort of connection agreement with the Secana Times that maybe on a monthly basis, we send them an article about something economically great happening in Tiverton? Because I think from what Susan Anderson said this morning, they had actually asked her to write a couple of articles.
Yeah.
Because there isn't enough news. They're in lack of printable material. And I don't think they have very many reporters now because of a cost effectiveness. So maybe if we were to submit to them on a monthly basis, the third week of the month or whatever week of the month, that they can count on us for submitting something printable, that they would actually put it out there and people would be able to read it.
Well, they actually did do a nice article on that woman with S&S
No, that's,
Transmissions. And then in today's paper, they had a nice write-up of Jennifer Rashley.
Jennifer Rashley.
So I think the Secana Times is doing a pretty good job. I mean, they are starving for articles to print. I mean, not only for us, but just in general, as you said, Barbara. So, I mean, it's certainly a good idea to be able to submit stuff to them, but I think oftentimes they know it before we do. Which is, and I think
That's their
that comes
job.
down to because if you go back to the, a standard operating procedure where, someone comes into town and is looking to do something, but that information is not rolled down to all the various departments. We don't see it. Something happens, is that like four corners, and then what happens is an issue that becomes a legal issue. And a cease and desist is going to cost everyone money.
Right.
So I think it kind of goes back to having a process in place which informs everyone down the line, whether they're not directly involved with it or not, just to have that information and be disseminated in an appropriate manner.
And not only will it cost money, but it'll hit the Secana Times and it will hit Newport Daily News and it will be bad press for Tiverton instead of positive press. So that's a good point, Mark.
Yeah.
And I just want to put out, again, I have to be careful of what I share, but while there was discussion about a cease and desist as a possibility on that property that was mentioned earlier, that may not be the case. The town attorney and the administrator are trying to work through that issue with folks.
Right. So we have to,
That's great news.
Thank you, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so the that's basically what we've been doing with the update. And like I said, I can get back in touch with Dave and see if we can come up with an idea for him, a space somewhere, either on our page that I could just sort of, it doesn't have to be constant, but it's like when you look at the website, there needs to be a little column somewhere for us to just be able to shoot some news in, or something that's come up that's important to know. I don't know how many people actually go to the EDC website, but I do know that some do, because that's I'll get a call every now and then from a business that is coming into town and wants some information, and I'm able to refer them to the planning board or to whoever they need to go to. So it is looked at. Anyway, I'm just if people wouldn't mind, I'd like to switch number 7 and number 8, because it's sort of 8 will fall into our discussion, I think. I have been in touch with the Tiverton High School I was referred to, whoops, what's the man's name? Oh, I've forgotten his name. From the high school, they referred me to someone who works with the community in terms of talking to interns to see if maybe we could get somebody to help us with coming up with it, looking at the computers and getting some email addresses for businesses. That's one thing we had, has been chipping away at, Mike. And it was something that we had brought up when this whole lean program came up. It was like people were not asking when people came in for businesses came in. There was no place for a business to put its email down. And something as simple as that would be really helpful, especially had we all had, balls, we would have been able to know that COVID was coming and how much easier it would have been to have had emails from businesses. I was able, when things came into me from Rhode Island Commerce or SBA or whatever, if I had emails and I had all the emails from Four Corners and some other people, I was able to shoot them out directly. But how much better that would have been if we had had an accurate email list of businesses. A lot of businesses now have Facebook pages. And, what I found is I kind of tried shit every now and then. I'll sit down and see if I can do 10 more, out of the 600, whatever. What they do is they'll have you can call info. They'll have an email address that's info@such and such. So I've been sending, emails to that. And then if I don't get a response, it's just, that's basically what they're using now. So I wish there was a better way of getting pertinent information out quickly. But that's one of the issues we're dealing with too. And I did speak to somebody in the high school and I'm waiting for them to get back because we thought maybe some intern would like to, some computer literate person other than me would like to help with that. So the number 7 was
Renee?
Yes.
Maybe before you jump on, just when you approached the high school, was it with the idea that could be a community service senior project?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Just wanted to check that.
Yep.
I think someone would jump on it. Okay.
Yeah. So, everything's crazy everywhere. So who knows what people are doing? Who knows if that person that I contacted even got the message? So I'll follow up on that. That's not as pressing an issue. So we can. Dave Robert is emailing me. That's so weird. He's watching it.
How about that?
That's so weird. It just showed up on my computer. I'm like freaking me out.
Glad you said good things about him.
Yeah.
I am too. I really like him. So it's like. He said, anyway, it's like, oh, man, now I'm going to get embarrassed. I'm blushing. Oh my God. This is awful. Geez. Okay. Numbers, we were going to talk about the gazebo project, but maybe what we can do is just sort of go to number 9, because I know Martin and Mike, you've met and had a chat, and I'm sure the gazebo will come up under that. So maybe I'll let you guys fill us in on what your talk was about and, where we are and what you think of it.
Martin, you want to start or you want me to?
I'll let you start. I kind of brought up issues and then I figured that maybe you'd have a chance to grind through them a little bit and give us some help in that department.
Sure. Let me just find where I put my notes from before. So thank you. And I apologize that I missed the last meeting. It was just an oversight on my part. So for those of you who don't know me, which I think are most of you, I know Renee for a while. Barbara, you and I have met many times. I don't know if you remember that, but we have. I have been in Tiverton for about 20 years. When I first came in, I was appointed to the school committee, and I served on the school committee for 6 years, most of the time as the vice president. And then ran for council several times, have been active in the chair up until January of the Tiverton Democrats, and have kept active in town. And that way I was also on for about 3 years, the Tiverton Land Trust, and just recently stepped off that in August. So I have a pretty good sense of various parts of the town. I live in North Tiverton, and our daughter graduated from Tiverton High School. And then my professional job, I am a social worker by training, but an administrator for the State Child Welfare Agency. And for most of that time, I served so I've been there since 1997. And for most of the time, I served as the liaison to the General Assembly and other elected officials. So have a good sense of the folks on the state level as well, just to give that. So I had asked specifically to be the liaison to this commission. And as I said to Martin, because I think that this commission can do a lot to help build Tiverton out from a business perspective in a way that addresses the needs of the comprehensive plan, and at the same time helps to build our tax base, and also helps to enrich the community. So I think my assumption is that everybody on here, doesn't just want to bring a business in for the sake of bringing a business in. You want it to be planful. You want it to be something that kind of matches what our community looks like, what our needs are, and brings that enrichment aspect to it. So I'm excited about working with all of you. I also have asked to be our liaison to the Newport Chamber. So I was able to attend one of those meetings so far. And I also know Erin, the director of the chamber, from when she was also a lobbyist at the State House. So in terms of some of the specific items that we talked about, what I really think, well, let me back up. And you don't necessarily have to answer this question now, but think about it, and I'd love to hear back. Because I don't know, have you had recently or had a liaison from the council before? No?
No.
Okay. So my question was going to be, if you said yes, what worked and what didn't work? So I see what didn't work. You didn't have anybody. So the question is really, what do you want from me in this role? No, that's my phone, Martin.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it sounded weird to me. We had questions about how we should be interacting with the other organizations in town, and specifically, planning, I think. And then we had started a discussion a bit ago about, what can we do to energize the build out of the business park, and do we have a role in that, and should we begin to think about how to market it, or is that role taken by someone else? There seemed to be some indication that maybe we weren't appropriate for that role, and we want to be effective, but we want to do it in a way that coordinates well with the rest of the town functions.
I think one of the first things we did as a commission was to work on the economic development component of the comprehensive plan. That's how we all got, thankful, Lisa Carr, thank you very much for all your help during that. But because prior, I had been attending the comprehensive plan meetings and was there when they were reviewing the economic development element, and was concerned at some of the things that were being included or not included. And at that point, we basically took it over and worked really hard to make it relevant for the town, but also to align it with state goals. At that point, the state had just had Brookings Institute had just come up with a 5-year plan for the state. They've since revised that. And I know I have copies of all of that. So we use that to help us to sort of say, okay, this is where we need to be going. This is where the state is going. And, use the categories that the state had sort of looked at to become our own. So that was something that we did way early on. And I think, those were the ideas that we had. And so since then, we've been trying to figure out how we put these into action. And, the council that was, there have been councils that have been, we've had different councils and different philosophies. And, we've been trying to sort of plug along and chip away at things that we think, small things even, like the lean program, like replacing the sign in North Tiverton, like, doing pamphlets, like, all of that kind of stuff. But we still have questions of where do we go? And is that what you want us to be doing? Or is there another role? We're not sure.
It's a relevance issue, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Others? So, okay, then jump in if you want.
Yep.
So before getting down to some of those more specific things, one of the things that I'd love to do, and I'm certainly willing to propose this, is a workshop, at least to start the ball rolling, to talk about the relationship between and among this commission, the planning board, the zoning board, the council, recognizing that zoning and planning have very distinct roles that even the council can't step into at times because they're a quasi-judicial body. At the same time, in looking at some of our zoning regulations these past few days because of a variety of things, there are some things in there that could be clearer that I think would help businesses, whether they're expanding or whether they're wanting to come in new. So I think having a workshop just to kind of, and it might be a series of workshops, it could lead to the lean process, which I'm somewhat familiar with. At the same time, I'd love us to think about, before we did that, what do you want to go into that type of a meeting with? How do you see the agenda playing out? What are some of the key components? And because I'm a very solution focused person. I'll listen to the concerns that folks have and the issues that folks have. At the end of the conversation, I want to look at how we can resolve it to the best of our ability in a way that's going to be workable within the constructs that we have, as well as workable for as many of the parties, if not all the parties, as possible. Sometimes you can't make everyone happy, and I think we all understand that. But I think most of the time, you can sit down and have a good conversation and figure out, okay, we can do this, we can't do that, or we can do this in a different way. So thinking about, if we had a workshop, what would you want to go into that? Maybe we can think about that for a discussion at the next meeting of this group.
Well, Mike, to your point, this is Lisa. I think right up front, roles and responsibility between the different commissions and the town council, or relevance, as I think Mark said a little while ago. But I do think that's really important. Another thing that I'm just not sure who does it and how it plays out is, I know the town keeps trying to do things. I know there's federal money out there. I know there's state money out there sometimes. I don't know who's trying to plug into it. Again, that might be part of the roles and responsibilities, but even just having an understanding of that environment right now, it never would have occurred to me that any type of COVID funding could be used for anything but COVID. And to your point, maybe it can't. But what funding is out there that we don't know about? And how do we plug into it? And who would do that?
Great.
Taking that a step farther, I think lines of communication, I think that's where we have the biggest shortfall, is no one is communicating with each other. No one knows what's going on in any other of the departments. And I think that's going to be a critical element in order to have those processes in place and procedures that Lisa's talking about, that if we don't know who to talk to, or it just, there isn't a flow of information. That is really the key, the key element, flow of information. It doesn't have to be a decision. It just needs to be out there so that everyone has access to it.
Okay. And go ahead.
No,
Renee,
no,
go
no.
ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it happens informally. I mean, if somebody's on 2 commissions, you hear about it, that kind of thing. But it makes sense that even if there's, I mean, I know people read minutes and stuff, but when do we get feedback back about where we should be going, that kind of thing.
And I think, Martin, you had mentioned it, not sure of what the role is in regard to the industrial park or the business park. If you look at the charter, I think this group has a significant role in helping with that, because the 4th item as to a responsibility of this commission in the charter is to assist in the search for and attraction of businesses, which would be consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. So that doesn't say businesses only in a certain section of town. It's businesses townwide. So I think that's part of that strategic plan, and really getting people involved in thinking about what should our business profile look like overall? How do we support what's here? And then how do we build out from there? And I know, and Renee, you had mentioned, the commerce possibly having some resources for this. And I know the chamber is willing to assist. They have some resources that we could talk to them about. I don't know if they're financial or just technical assistance, but their goal is really to expand out beyond just Newport City or the immediate area. If you look at the Discover Newport link, which is one of their components, it links for Tiverton. If you want to know more about Tiverton, click here. Well, it takes us to the town website. And I assume, Renee, when you talk about the EDC web page, and again, Dave, this is nothing, I think Dave does a wonderful job.
You do, Dave, you do.
But I think you're talking about the one where you click on boards and commissions and go to EDC.
Yeah. You got to drill down.
Yeah, you have to drill down. And, I'm thinking, 1, 2, 3, 5 years out. How do you build things? What needs to be built out? What are the priorities, and how do you build them out? So if you look at Newport, and I imagine they have somebody more than part-time, because I know this is an add-on for Dave's job to manage the website, but it's a little more robust. He's working with the tools that he has available to him and the time that he is available. Do we want to look at something that's more robust, so it is more enticing to folks? And then getting into business in Newport, they really go through, if you want to register your business, you do this. If you want an entertainment license, you go here, this and that. So it's on the front page. The links are on the front page. You don't have to dig a lot. And again, I think the structure that we give Dave to work within is fairly limiting.
He has put, like, the pamphlet that we put together for Tiverton is on the EDC website.
Right.
Well, I think also another element is, the EDC is a little underfunded in terms of how we can actually promote what we have. I mean, there's an issue there.
I think the funding, though, maybe that's putting to discuss, putting that part too soon. I think we need
Oh, no,
to,
I just,
Yeah.
but it's something that has to be considered for down the road.
oh, sure. If we're going to have a more robust, a bigger
plan.
role, then we have to have a bigger budget to do the things
Especially
we
if you're
plan.
gonna, if.
There
if
was,
you need to
there
build
was a significantly
industrial
bigger
site.
budget many years ago. I mean, I seem to recall seeing $5,000 and, you know, thousands of dollars in the EDC budget.
Yeah. And in order to promote a property or properties like the industrial site, it's not going to go with $800 a year. That is the bare minimum to, forgetting about the amount of money that Renee probably spends just on paper and printing, probably is used up. So, that is just something important. I mean, if at some point, in order to really be effective in promoting the industrial and giving the tools that we need in order to be effective, there has to be a legitimate budget number. I don't know what that is. That has to be sat down, but we've always kind of, okay, what's the bare minimum we can get by without upsetting someone on the board that, we're exceeding, $1,000. It just, that's a challenge.
Yeah, and I agree, Martin, that it might be premature. At the same time, I'm a proponent of saying, okay, this is what we're able to do with this small amount of money we do right now. It doesn't really get us much. To start off with next budget cycle, because you're going to have to start, it's kind of late for this budget cycle to get anything in.
Sure.
But for next budget cycle, what is it that you want to reach to? And what would that cost? And I don't know what that reach is. It may be getting a quarter or part-time person assigned to really help you, because you're all volunteers. And part of that then also goes into what are they helping you do?
Right.
So I think that's part of the discussion. But the worst thing that can happen is you put a budget proposal out there and they say, no, we're just going to give you what we gave you.
Well, I'm sure it's someone who needs to be on a payroll, but it might be advertising in Providence Business News, for example, or in an industrial publication. I don't know that it needs to. We have to pay someone. I mean, the other.
When it comes to the industrial park, it's like having an inventory of each site, understanding how those sites could be developed. What is it going to cost to develop those sites? I mean, just the bare minimum of getting the road and appropriate infrastructure was, sewer and electricity and gas or whatever, so that, we have an idea of what we're actually trying to market. And, and then I think the advertising or a promotional budget for, say, the industrial park would become a little more apparent.
Yeah.
I always think that a town is also like a living being that has to have a spirit, that has to have an image. And I think we have to sort of work at giving Tiverton an image. Tiverton right now is several locations in a town, but it doesn't have a cohesive type of image. Like you look at Bristol or Westerly, and people read about them and they think of it as a community. And I don't know that they think of Tiverton as a community. I think we have to maybe, and it sounds corny, we have to kind of work at making things happen that'll draw the population together in a major fashion, so that there's the representation of everyone in Tiverton that would appeal to a lot of different people coming here, like a Founders Day or a whatever day kind of scenario, that the town is behind, not just a small group of people like Celebrate Tiverton that runs into troubles because of permitting and this and that and the other. There has to be sort of a unified effort by everyone to say, oh gosh, we'll make fireworks happen, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll all work it, we'll all do a little part. And I think that more than advertising, would maybe draw more people to, I don't know, that's just a thought, and I don't know how you guys feel about it.
I think at a universal level, I think you're right, Barbara. You were sparking ideas for me while you were talking, and I was wondering, just putting it in a narrower lens towards small businesses. I was like, do we have a Tiverton Facebook page for small businesses? I know we have Tiverton Facebook pages, but most of those are, sort of gossip pages.
Tiverton,
Well, I suggest years
Tiverton
ago,
had a Facebook, there was a EDC Facebook page, and then that was taken down because it ran into some problems.
So
Well, yes.
maybe not a government or a town sponsored page, but maybe we can help advocate for small businesses to put a page together and get people to join and engage and sort of organically grow. And that would be great because we could be on it and see what their issues and concerns are. Just a thought.
Well, I think West has one. And years ago, when I was on Discover Newport, I suggested that innumerable times to the town council that we have not just the official town website, but that we have a website that businesses can utilize, and that is somehow rather vetted, but it's something that the town people would learn to turn to for events happening in town, business opportunities, or some kind of commercial website. And I don't really know who would fund it, that it would get out of tax money that businesses pay. I have no idea how that could be structured, but we should look into, as you said, some sort of something that's managed by somebody.
I mean, it's going to be a challenge because, like it or not, we have a very disparate
community.
and
Exactly.
very decentralized. We have different groups in different areas, but very little cohesiveness overall. And I think that is, and I think we've already found that's a really huge challenge to overcome. And I think we need to explore the fact that we do have at least a base of employment potential, not only within Tiverton, but also neighboring Fall River, that we should help try to capitalize on, especially trying to get folks into the industrial park, because there is an employment base that could be tapped. And obviously we'll want to try and capitalize as much on Tiverton as we can, but I think we need to also focus or emphasize that there is a huge employment base right next door to us that can also be utilized. Trying to pull everyone together, that can take years. Whereas if we can promote and push the industrial section, that has more immediate benefits in terms of tax revenues and also boosting employment. And if we make our neighbors happy, that's going to benefit us as well.
Excuse me.
I'm just going to go back. I think it really ultimately comes down to, we have to have these communication lines open, not just from in a kind of informal. It really needs to be a formalized situation where information is passed directly, rather than just word of mouth because two people are on the same committee or whatever.
Right.
That's going to be the really key if we're going to have any success. That and procedures in place when a business is coming into town or asking questions, that there's automatically, that information is just automatically shifted through everyone, whether they're involved or not.
Martin, were you saying something, or Lisa?
No, I do agree with all that. But before we end, I just want to, I want to make sure that we at least acknowledge that we have struggled with attempts to try to improve the situation in North Tiverton, and that we haven't forgotten that, and that it may be difficult to at least difficult for me to kind of figure out how to best assist the businesses there and those who live there too. that's where I think that maybe some expertise in those kinds of things would really help our group.
Have we ever reached out to Grow Smart Rhode Island?
We have had, I think, we've
Yeah,
had one.
and for a while, we had, well, I'm forgetting his name.
Scott?
Scott, right. But
Yep.
we also had for a long time until she actually left, Ashley Medeiros was coming from Discover Newport, and she was acting as a liaison to like the Newport Chamber and Discover Newport. Oh no, I'm sorry, it was Connect Newport. She left. There's a new guy named Rick Obermeyer who had sent me information about a meeting that I wasn't able to go to. So, and I've been trying to get back to him. I haven't heard from him. He hasn't responded to my emails, but he was the one who worked with Ashley. Ashley would actually come to our meetings. She was great. And she helped us sort of pull things together a little bit. She's now, I think, on the EDC in Warren. She's working over there now. But yeah, we have reached out to people to see if they could, but I think it's one of those things where you have questions and they have answers, and that sort of refines your questions, and then you have more answers, and we're in that process of zeroing in on where we could have some impact, which is, like we tried to come up with some ideas for projects that would make people sort of say, oh, okay. And that's how the gazebo came up, just to sort of bring that up again.
Yeah.
Because
I think, I'm sorry, Renee, I just want to say, I think those are great projects, but one of the things that has concerned me over the last couple of years is seeing us sort of, because we're not getting where we want to be or need to be as an EDC, we're trying to focus on what we can do. And it seems like a lot of that has turned into, okay, let's do a sign or paint a gazebo, which is beautiful and great. But for this discussion with Mike, I really think we've raised up a lot of points to you that we, I don't want us to be just the town decorating committee either.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my concerns also is that, and I think Renee has done an amazing job reaching out to all these people and trying to pull people in and engage people. But I don't know that we've managed to, other than Ashley, really consistently engage and get any kind of good back and forth relationship. So that's a concern I have, thinking about what is this committee, what is the EDC? Why am I on it? And how can I help? What can we do going forward?
I'll agree with that because, we have, we really did a lot of work to get the comprehensive plan business done. And we have had some successes with small projects, but I think that the real projects are, maybe we haven't really quite gotten our mind around yet on how to get it done.
Yeah, and I think this group can really be a catalyst for change. And I can't bring it up for our next meeting of the council because the agenda is pretty much set. But I'm happy to put us on the agenda for the following meeting and talk about some of the concepts that we've talked about. Talk about if you're in agreement about doing some type of workshop with us, the council, the planning board, the zoning commission. Because for me, the zoning commission and the planning board have distinct roles that, clearly have a governance structure. They're not necessarily bringing things in. The planner, I know she's trying to work on some of that. So I think Jennifer's a key partner. But the planning board and the zoning board, they look at the projects that are brought before them and then, make the decisions based on the regulations and laws that they have to follow. And I think part of our role can be in helping to, again, have that vision and then bring that vision to work for us and then help entice those businesses that fit within that vision. And that, that vision has to be developed not just by this group, but by the town. And I'm not sure, and, Barbara, you mentioned it, Lisa, you mentioned, I'm not sure that as a town we have that vision. And I just really believe that this group can be that catalyst. I think part of it is, as you said, you haven't had, at least for everybody that's on this board now, and I don't know how long each of you have been on, you've not had a liaison from the council. So I understand why you feel like you're kind of not seen as important, and you struggle with knowing what your role is, and that communication piece is critical. And a thought that came to my mind with that, and Renee, I don't think this happens, but is there any type of quarterly meeting of all the committee chairs in town, or a periodic meeting?
I would love to do that. I think that that's absolutely critical. I think, face-to-face contact, I mean, obviously with COVID, but I think that would be perfect. I was going to suggest like every 2 months.
Yeah, something, I say quarterly, just, that kind of falls in, but it could be more frequently. And I think that gets to the communication piece.
Right.
Quarterly is infinitely more than you get now.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Because if, unless I happen to hear something, or I happen to be, chatting with somebody, you don't get that kind of information. And yeah, it would be nice to have, I think it's important to have a sense of what people expect from us, and clearly what the role should be. I mean, there are going to be issues that come up. I mean, differences of opinion, but in terms of, we have a comprehensive plan that's still in effect, and I think that's the vision for the town. Pretty much, we can always go back to that. That's our baseline. That's our vision from the town, and that's where we start. And when you're talking about looking at businesses, and you're talking about coming up with what Tiverton is, I mean, we do have some things that are already in place, but it's not cohesive yet. It's we've got some beautiful, we've got Part and Gray, we've got Four Corners. It's a quintessential New England town. We've got a yacht club. We've got lots of pluses, but that's not what people are. That's not how we're presenting ourselves.
Right. Right. So I will put us on the agenda, Renee. I'll send some ideas back to you for the form that I have to do for that agenda. And certainly if, that would be the first meeting in April. So that would be the second Tuesday in April.
I hope I'm back. I think I'm actually just back.
Okay, if not, I can do it the second meeting if you want.
No, I'm somebody else can go.
Okay.
There's absolutely no problem. It's not me. We have a group. So if I'm not back, somebody else can certainly go.
Renee, where are you going? Did I miss that at the beginning?
You might. Yes, you did miss that.
I'm sorry.
I'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. You can catch me up later.
Okay.
In terms of the gazebo was a question that came up. So in the discussions, and I think Renee, Mike Marcello, our attorney, may have talked with you about this, or Chris. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's really, and I kind of agree that the gazebo probably doesn't fit under the EDC. And I know you have a small group in your area, Renee, that's looking at it. And part of it is that it is a town property. So how in the long run can we make sure that the town maintains it, maybe through the support of a Friends of the Gazebo type thing?
Right. I think that's basically what it's been. I think it's been our Stonebridge neighborhood group that has basically taken care of that. I did talk to Denise Surratt about, it's similar to what's going on, Barbara, about this, about like the dog park. You have a group that starts raising funds for the dog park. The town is the banker. They hold the checks for that. And then when you get to a certain key point, you can get the repairs. That's how it was done probably 16, 17 years ago when the thing was falling down, and we all got together and did it. When I talked to Mike, he said that that the first thing we should do is just make it and go before the town council and say, look, this is something that we're concerned about. It is a town property. We'd like to work with the town on this. Reason I was saying EDC was just, I have two hats. I'm on the EDC. I'm in the group that does the fixing. So, that's where it came from. Plus it is an icon in Tiverton. I mean, people, we're the ones that decorate the trees. We're the ones that, whatever. And it is something that people know as part of Tiverton. And
maybe it would be great to get, once things settle, to have the high school band have at least one concert there
Yeah,
a year.
they do Christmas caroling there every Christmas. I do
That's
think
us.
Oh, okay, that is you. So I will say most of the images that I see of Tiverton, like one of the most popular images is that gazebo during the fall with the
Right,
trees for
with the
Christmas.
tree in it. And so it isn't,
Yeah.
it's part of our image. It's like we're
It
talking
is.
about image. That's why I kind of
It's-
said, well, I've got two hats. Let's look at this.
It is very worthy. I didn't want to earlier when I said, I want to do even more. It wasn't to detract from that at all because it's a very worthy project.
Yeah, no, I had no problem with that. Yeah.
Susan looked into it for the historic aspect because it's sitting on top of a well, but it's not really that old. And that well, I guess, serves two houses on that road.
Yeah, there is a pump.
But-
It is on top of a well. Yeah.
Huh, I didn't know that.
No,
Yeah.
because we thought, gee, historic well, maybe we could get historic money to restore it and have, drink from the original well in Tiverton, kind of whatever. But it's not. It's disappointing. But in any case, it's a beautiful thing and it's very picturesque. And I think we should certainly support everything that helps it along.
Right. So I will have to put it on the net, not since this agenda is already filled, we could bring it up for the next agenda and say that this is something we're looking into. Just it's a project.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, Martin, we also talked about the signage for
Yes.
the park, and I think
That's part of the marketing plan.
right, yeah. So how does that fit into that overall plan? And then look at that, and then the four corners, the traffic area and the like. There are some questions that were raised about, you and I talked about responsibility for each of those roads that go around it. Some are state roads. I think when you turn right onto Non-Quit Road, I guess that is, Neck Road. That's, I think, a town road. The other piece is concern about the two establishments are separate establishments in terms of the way they're approved and licensed. So the garden kind of establishment where he has the outdoor tables right now are not part of the restaurant. So there are some nuances around that would need to be looked into.
I know that they have, as a group, they've spoken to the police department and they have spoken to the Department of Transportation, and there's supposed to be some kind of traffic study that's been going on there.
Okay.
I don't know the status of it right now, but they have already been up to the state, and we're looking into at least because of crosswalks and also doing something like lowering the speed limit down to 25 miles an hour, so they're in the process of talking to the state. I don't know where it is at this point.
Okay.
That is being done or being looked at.
So I'll get it on the agenda for the first meeting in April.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds like a plan. That was basically it. Does anybody want to make sure that we add something to the agenda for next month, or should we just have a continuing discussion on this? Is that?
I think we got
Yeah.
I think
plenty to
that's
talk about.
Yeah, I don't know if we need anything else new. I think, like you said, there's plenty on this one to talk about
Okay.
and follow up on.
Okay.
And it was nice to meet you, Mike.
You as well. Might I suggest with the agenda, Renee, that it be, if you want to look at kind of what this group wants to see happen with a workshop,
Yep.
really putting on the agenda specifically that we're going to discuss those types of items, so that we can openly discuss them.
Okay.
Okay,
I
No,
will,
my-
you know what I'll do, Mike? Would it be, it might be a good idea if I just, if you sort of sent me some ideas back and forth. So we
Sure.
sort of firm that up, because then I'll know exactly how to word it.
Sure.
That would
Yeah.
be-
And great to meet all of you, and look
Right.
forward to meeting in person at some point.
At
Thank
some
you.
point.
Thanks, Mike. It was a
Been good.
pleasure.
All right, so should we need a motion to adjourn at 8:25?
I'll
Second.
motion.
Okay, second,
second.
Second.
Aye.
all in